Yes, I'm your boy here, Rob Chadwick. This is a debut of my new podcast with Welcome to Leeds. Do you know what I mean? We are here with the one and only DJ Paulette, a career spanned 30 years plus, one of the residents of Hacienda and also doing the scale at the moment. So welcome, DJ Paulette.
Thank you for inviting me.
How was your trip over?
The trip over was pretty good, apart from me getting my timings completely messed up and being at the train station 3 hours earlier than I needed to be there, which was a bit of a shocker, really. But
I did invite you to come to Leeds earlier, but she weren't having it, to be fair. So that's good. Yeah, you did show your roots to Manchester, to be fair.
Because I didn't want to be walking around like the loneliest little hobo in the rain. You know, it's just like there's nothing more misery making than when you get somewhere early. And I've got a bag full of vinyl and I'm just trudging, you know. I just needed to plot.
You were here a couple of weeks ago for the Hacienda event.
I was indeed.
Was it good?
Yes.
Enjoy it?
I took that greenhouse and made it a few degrees but warmer than it should have been.
Amazing.
I think.
The crowd looked pretty good. It was a warm day. So yeah everything aligned.
It wasn't just warm. It was one of the hottest days we've had. That greenhouse was absolutely roasting. I did actually ask them when I got there if they could just open two sides of the greenhouse for a little bit just to let the heat out. So yeah, it was a hot day, hot crowd, hot music.
There you go.
Nothing better.
You recently won a DJ Mag Award, or not DJ Mag Award, sorry, you won a DJ of the Year Award.
I won a DJ Mag Award in 2022. Then I got the Keynote Inspiration Award from Sound City in 2023. Did I say the DJ Lifetime Achievement?
I believe you won one a couple of weeks ago with Karen, right?
Yes, I'm just building up to that.
Yeah,
then I got an NTIA Ambassadors of the Night Award at the start of this year, and then I've just won DJ of the Year, Nordoff and Robbins, Northern Music Awards.
Amazing. So you kept the trajectory going, so that's good. I mean, so how was that one this past couple of weeks? Because that's a big one, right?
Yeah, really, really good. I mean, I'm happy to have got that. And certainly when I made my speech, I just said, you know, it's only taken me 30 years to get...
Just going back to the start a little bit, obviously, you know, did you always feel that you were going to get into the music industry? Obviously, Manchester's obviously a massive musical city, a lot of sort of scope there for being in the music industry. But obviously back then it was a lot more difficult, like any other city. But no social media, obviously, well, definitely not on social media. But so, you know, a lot more difficult. So how did you feel when you wanted to try and get into music? And what was it? Did it take for you to break it?
I was a singer before I was a DJ. And I'd spent years writing songs, working in studios, doing backup vocals, you know, doing little gigs in pubs and in everywhere from Chorlton to Liverpool, and student unions, Sheffield, Leeds, and then, you know, my band, Bernie Hot. It wasn't my band, actually. I was second lead singer. I shouldn't take all the credit for that. But the band played support to Deacon Blue at the International One and Curtis Mayfield as well. So we were kind of okay. But I was a singer before I was a DJ, and I'd never really thought about being a DJ at all. But I had a lot of records. And I've been clubbing since I was 15 years old. So I had very much an awareness of what it takes to move a dance floor. And I was suggested as a DJ by a friend to someone who is putting on a club night at the Number One, and at the Number One club in Manchester. And we met. We chatted for about half an hour about music. And, you know, obviously she didn't have any money to pay a named DJ at the time. So I think, whether it was desperation or just like, well, yeah, she can do it. She's got the records and, you know, it's a bit of a no-brainer. I don't know what her thought process was, but she offered it to me. And I jumped at the chance. You know, it just felt like a bit of a no-brainer to me. And I never actually thought about the politics or the practicalities of it or technicality of it, as in I didn't have any equipment. I didn't have any decks at home. I'd never done it before. I'd never DJ'd in a club. For sure, I've been to clubs for years, but I've never DJ'd. But that didn't stop me. And I played the first night, 9 till 2, on my own. No breaks. I don't remember going to the toilet. Everybody danced, nobody left. And while I was playing this set, and all the way through it, I was asking the lighting guy, you know, Ian, what do I do? What do I do? Because I didn't know how to use the mixing desk. And just all night he was like, push that button, listen in your headphones, move that fader. And I was learning in real time in front of, you know, there were people in the club dancing on the dance floor while I was learning, just learning in front of people. And the thing that happened, which I think was the decider really, was that I really enjoyed it. And I also saw it as some kind of next level for performers, because I was a singer, like I say. So I've taken what I've learned from performing on stage and put it behind the decks and channeled it into, you know, how I'd construct a set with records instead of singing it. And I knew that I was going to do it again. I just, you know, I didn't fear the repetition of it. I wanted to play to people again. I wanted to play records to people again. And the luck was that we went to see Paul Cons and Lucy Sher about hosting their second room for this new party, which was going to be called Flesh at the Hacienda. And they offered us the room. And I say us because I was DJing supposedly in a duo when I started, but my friend was Adele, who was the organizer of the party, but she didn't have any records and she didn't have any headphones, but she was just the person who had facilitated the deal. So we split the fee for the first few months, and she did nothing. She just partied and took half the money, and I did all the work. And then there was a fashion show, which I had to walk in, which meant that she had to carry the room, and it was a disaster, and we got in loads of trouble for it. And then I just said, and I didn't mean to dob her in, but I just said I was in the fashion show, so it wasn't my fault. And then it was revealed that she didn't have any records and she didn't have any headphones and all of this. So they were going to fire us both. And I said, yeah, but you know that if I'm in that room, I can play that room, and that room is banging, it's kicking. So they gave me a 3-month and further 3-month probationary to see if I could carry that room on my own. And then, you know, the rest is history. I stayed there for 4 years.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Every Wednesday playing records. Now, I didn't ever think I am going to be a DJ. I went into it because I love music, I love clubs, and I love people, I love entertaining. And I fell into it. I really fell into it. But I fell into it, and then I loved what I was doing, and I knew it was something that I was good at, because you've got the proof in front of you. So I just pursued it. I just followed it and thought to myself, let's see how far this can go.
Amazing. And it's just at the same time, obviously, I know you were at Piccadilly Records, and I heard a story or read a story, I can't remember which it was now, that you were spraying perfume on some of your applications to get noticed. Is that
Oh, God, you got it all mangled there. Piccadilly Radio. It was Piccadilly Radio. And I sprayed perfume on my application for to be a junior reporter on a show called Saturday Express. Because in fact, I was in radio before I became a singer, before I became a DJ. So that kind of came
after,
before all of this. And I did. I was 18 and I wanted my application to be noticed. So, my favorite perfume at the time was Calvin Klein's Obsession because it was new. And it was like, it proved that you were, hot kitty. So I did. I sprayed my application with Obsession and it did. It got me noticed. It got me the job. But I was probably the oldest person working on that show because it was like a teen kids lifestyle and culture program, and I was like at the oldest end of the age band for it. So I always wanted to do like really mature things. I wanted to do this feature for the show on the Hacienda, and they didn't. I did it. I recorded it. I did the interview with Pickering and Park and the VJs at the Hacienda and whoever else I spoke to. But when I took it back and I edited it all down to the 3 minutes, and then producer was just like, "Oh, it's a bit grown up for us."
Oh, wow, okay.
But I didn't really care because it got me a lifetime VIP membership for the Hacienda, so I wasn't bothered. My gain, their loss.
And obviously going back to the Hacienda slightly, obviously I know you said you kind of got your foot in the door. And what were those memories like from the start, and how did they kind of transact into the latter part of the Hacienda? How did you grow from being a resident at the Hacienda?
Yeah, I mean, the mad thing was I'd been a punter at the Hacienda. I'd been a clubber and I'd been to gigs at the Hacienda way before I even became a DJ. So, like I say, I never set out with the thing that I want to DJ here. It wasn't even a thought in my mind. It was just a place that I loved to go clubbing. So when it was offered, it was like, yeah, why not? But the interesting thing was, because I was brought into DJ at the gay night, that opened doors for me massively. But I stress that the Hacienda had not had a gay night or anything queer running through it for the first 9 years of its existence. So when this came to pass, it was completely new. It was a blank space. They'd never had anything queer in there, and they certainly didn't have any female DJs.
That's a question I was going to ask you, actually.
So the only way really that I got in to DJ, and I do know this as a truth from quite a few of the female DJs that came up at the same time as me, all of us think that we would never have got the gig DJing had we not come up through the gay scene, because you didn't get female DJs on the straight scene. Even if they played at those nights, they didn't get any sunshine. They didn't get on the flyers. They didn't get on the posters. They didn't get the sets that we got. We were headline. We were given equal headline status. And that really came because Lucy Sher, who was the co-director of A Bit Ginger Productions, she was 100% for promoting women and people of color and non-binary. And without her, without her kind of force, I don't think my career would have, I think I would have still possibly done it, but it wouldn't have happened with quite the sort of fanfare that it got. So yeah, it was the start of everything as well. It was just a beautiful combination. Hacienda, Flesh, first gay night, blah blah blah. First gay night that really, in the north, that really brought all the tribes together: Liverpool, Sheffield, Scotland, Glasgow, wherever else, right down to London. And we even had visitors from Europe, France, Italy, even the States. So we brought a lot of London DJs up as well. So it hadn't existed before. And it was something that was also a political Molotov for what was happening culturally and historically with, we've come off the back of the AIDS crisis, there's Section 28, we've got a, homophobic chief of police, and just the culture, the environment was really hostile to anything queer. And to start a night like Flesh, which is putting a massive gay party in the centre of town on the last Wednesday of every month, I mean, that was just like a massive FU to everyone that thought, anything gay was, a dirty, a dirty word and a dirty secret. We were out, we were proud, and we weren't going to hide away. And it was a beautiful party as well. So straight people wanted to come, and they would, just to prove their gayness, they would kiss their same-sex friends on the door just so that they could get in. And that is a massive turnaround because, up until that point, nobody wanted to even touch a queer person, let alone pretend they were queer. Yeah. So that's what Flesh achieved.
Yeah, and how did, it's safe to say that Manchester and probably surrounding cities around it was not well represented by that sort of culture at the time. What was it like in Manchester when that Flesh was getting its heights? Was the rest of Manchester following it as well? Or?
Yeah, absolutely, because it just kind of blew the doors off. Because first of all, also Flesh was the first night to get a regular late license. So we had a 4:00 closed license, and once Flesh got that, it left it open for other clubs in Manchester to follow. So you can kind of see the environment start to change. We've already got, I think it was 1990 when Peter Dalton and Carol Ainscough opened Mantos on Canal Street, and that in itself started to change the attitudes to queer culture, queer community by putting a glass-fronted building. We weren't hiding away anymore. We weren't in basements. We didn't have the curtains closed or the blacked out windows. It was a massive, almost like quarter of the street, glass-fronted building with tables outside. Nobody was hiding their queerness anymore. And I think also what then happened was that people started to see there was an economy around queer clubbing. And, the pink pound suddenly became a phrase we started to hear and read in the newspapers, and it started to soften attitudes to what it was to be queer in this world, and started to facilitate in its own small way the integration of queer into our society as we knew it in the 90s. I mean, there were lots of battles, that's not saying that it was solely responsible, because since the 70s and the Pride movement, there are people making noises and activism in order to make queer culture, integrate queer culture into society. So it wasn't the only thing, but it did its part. And it also shone a light on Manchester and the Hacienda in a totally different way, because the Hacienda up until that point had been guns, gangs, drugs. When Flesh came, it suddenly became very sexy again and very colourful and very positive, and people wanted to write about it, and people wanted to come to the club, and people felt safe in the club. So it changed that attitude as well. And I think that's a great thing. I think Paul Combs and Lucy Sher did a fantastic job of remarketing and rebranding the Hacienda and Manchester as it's queer up north.
Amazing. And just venturing over to this side of the Pennines, obviously you did play some really cool gigs in Leeds. Obviously I had a lot of similar issues. Obviously we know about Dave Beard putting the Basics nights on, and he used to put them on in gay clubs to be able to attract the right people. But you actually played for Tony in
Music Factory.
Yeah. And how was those days? Those good?
It was good. It was glam. I think I played for Tony Hanlon a few times, and that was the more glamorous side of house music. I know, because like Basics was like this really blokey underground, and Music Factory was just like this, really like the American house, Frankie Knuckles, David Morales, that kind of vocal house, big room, like uplifting, not happy house, but like really positive, uplifting house sound. And I played there a few times, and the crowd was well dressed, well heeled, good looking. Why not? Mixed. Yes.
Amazing.
And then I played Vegas as well in Leeds, which did more the underground, quirky, but kind of mixed it all together, but on a smaller scale. I think that's where I met Jojo Kelly as well.
Oh, Jojo, we know Jojo. Yeah, Jacob's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. And obviously, I know you've obviously had your book out, Welcome to the Club. Obviously, it's now sort of coming to its adolescence. It's been out for like maybe 5 months now, 5-6 months, right? Now, 6 months.
Is it a dog?
But obviously, I know you spoke about the book heavily, but obviously, since it's been out, what's been the feedback on it? Has it been, obviously, I know it's been great, but
Yeah,
I mean,
the feedback has been fantastic. I mean, I haven't had the kind of life that I can write a sex, drugs and rock and roll book. I am really bad at taking drugs, and I say that in the book. I just, I've not got that kind of history, but I do have a very deep history in terms of music, the music industry and electronic dance music. And that has been, it's a work for actually more than 30 years. But in terms of DJing, it was a 30-year story. And it's been received in a really good way. I just wanted to write not a book, but the book. So I wanted to write the book that people would use as a reference for, this is how it was, this is how it is, and this is how it could be, and it's going to be. So it had to set out a plan. I kind of made an effort to set out a plan to say, these are the things that are beautiful about it. This is what's great about this culture. This is what's really shocking.
You can swear.
Shocking about this culture. And this is how we can fix it. And then also stick a flag in the ground for the people that I think are going to absolutely smash it for the next few years. And it's interesting because the deadline of the book was December 22. So I wrote the last probably words on it December the 6th, before we started kind of changing it around. And it's been really good to see Near Archives explode, Sherelle explode, because and Jam Supernova and Jaguar and those women just really start to blossom and bloom, because they're the names that I put in the Fierce Future Forces. They're the names that, after interviewing 50 odd people for the book, and I collated all the names of the people that everybody said, oh, this is who I think is going to nail it. It's got it right, I got it right. So it's just all so brilliant. It's been well received on that level as well, because it's accurate. It's an accurate representation of what happened, what is happening, good and bad, and what is about to happen. And I think that's, I didn't have that kind of book when I started DJing 30 years ago. So if I'd have had that book, I just kind of wrote the book that I would have wanted when I started. Would that help me do my job? And I wanted to write the kind of book that would, make people, sort of inspire people, and then also make them realise that they weren't on their own, and that whatever was happening, it's going to be okay. So there's a chapter on the pandemic, that's
actually my next question, actually, is about, obviously, you spoke about how the pandemic affected the nighttime economy.
Yeah.
And obviously we all know that from every city in probably the world, really.
Nightmare.
Yeah, nightmare economy.
Because the thing is, normally, we've had recessions, the electronic music industry in the last 30 years, I think we've experienced 2 recessions. I think it was 2001 and then 2008. And we've been able to override that, because when there's been a recession, we've still been able to work in other territories. It hasn't happened everywhere all over the world all at once. But the thing about the pandemic was that it shut down everything everywhere all at once. And it wasn't one DJ that was out of work. It was everyone struggling to kind of find a way to revive and resuscitate and sustain something that the government and the governments all over the world, well, not necessarily, because in Germany they got a lot of help. Italy, not so much. Spain, absolutely not. England, absolutely not. So that the governments were actually not supporting in any great way, shape or form. And that's also what I talk about in the book, because it makes a play for governments actually accepting that this isn't a hobby. This isn't something that we can retrain from just because things have gone wrong today. It's like, this is a proper job. All the jobs that everyone is doing, whether you're working on sound, vision, back of house production, accounts even, whether you're a DJ, a singer, a dancer, however you're linked to this culture, it's a real job. It's not a joke or a hobby. It's not something we can just untie our ballet shoes for and then just suddenly click into working in IT. It doesn't work like that. Every day that every person within this industry works is a training day.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know a single person in this industry that doesn't put their heart and soul into what they do, whether it's in PR or DJing or singing or whatever. From Sasha Lord to myself to Sophie B to, all Luke Una to, all these people, we're all so different, but we're all putting our absolute all into whatever it is that we do, whether it's radio, TV, DJing, production, hospitality events, however that's run. And I really wanted to lay it out very clearly what kind of things, what kind of work goes into putting on events. There's a long conversation with Fletch in the book talking about moving and how that changed. There's the conversation with Dulcie, who is like the talent booker for Brighton Pride, and how that affects this, how the pandemic affected that city when Brighton Pride could not happen. And I just really wanted to explain what was happening in human terms and in economic terms for this thing that the government did not want to support. And, in the back of my mind, maybe it's naive, but my hope is that if any politician reads that book, that they should understand and be aware of why we are making noises about, can we get UNESCO heritage like Berlin? Why can't we? Because these are places, whether it's the Hacienda or the Ministry of Sound or Fabric, these are places that continue to contribute to the community of each area. It's not isolated. It's not just making money for money's sake. People need this. This sense of community. This is how we socialize. You can't remove that from society. You'll drive people mad. So they need to really reassess how they think about this industry and support it in the proper way.
That kind of segues into my next question, actually. We've obviously seen, certainly here in Leeds, I'm sure Manchester the same, I know Liverpool and London's the same, a lot of club closures.
Yeah.
A lot of club closures.
Ouch.
The big rooms or the big venues are now taking over, mostly festival lineups, as we know, whether it's Testbed here in Leeds, Warehouse Project, obviously Liverpool has its own side. Obviously, we've seen Printworks in London.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Sheds.
Yeah, drum sheds. What's your take on that?
And now the Co-op Live in
Co-op
Manchester.
Live, of course,
well,
yeah.
it's finally
It's
open.
Is it open now?
It's finally
okay.
open. How is that going to affect the grassroots venues when people's kind of going out patterns have changed? And if someone spends 150 to 200 quid on a ticket to go and see their favourite artist at Co-op Live, and then you can build in, okay, maybe between 60 to 100 quid on taxis and drinks and whatever, and then maybe another 100 on merchandising. When they've spent that big wedge, they're not going to go out every week anymore. They're going to go out once in a, you know, maybe once every 2 months or once a quarter. And they're going to go to big events, which means that suddenly we're seeing lots of smaller venues and what they say grassroots venues closing down.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say that kind of segues again into another question about the Warehouse Project, because that kind of takes a lot away from not only Manchester, from the grassroots side of it, certainly for the electronic side of it, but even the cities around it, like Leeds, Liverpool, Sheffield. You're obviously, you credit Sasha for quite a lot of things in Manchester, I get that totally, but what do you think that it perceives for the other cities around the north, like the Leeds, Sheffields, that it's taken a lot away from the business here?
Yeah, I mean, the bigger it gets, it most certainly does that. And I think, well, this is where I'm saying that it has to support the talent from the, I mean, if it's gonna take the people, then it must at least kind of put it out there to nurture the talent from the surrounding areas. You can't just take with both hands. You've got to give something back in some way. And I think maybe, you know, again, maybe I'm being naive, but that's what I could see as some kind of two-way, that we see more local names from surrounding areas appearing on the lineups on these big events. So at least it feels like they're looking at us and not just cutting everybody out. But, you know, again, we're just brainstorming here, aren't we?
Yeah, that's it. Before we go on to, obviously, I know you brought some tracks here. You brought about 10 or 12.
And I brought a million.
Sadly we'll be able to play about 5, but which we've picked out. But
not all the way through, just a
just a couple of minutes. Yeah, a minute or something, just so we can chat about it quickly. Yeah, nothing too over the top. But I know we spoke on the phone a little briefly yesterday. I think just have a bit of a catch up and stuff. But you said you'd stopped buying vinyl in 2015.
Yeah.
What was the reason behind that?
Yeah, lots of reasons. First, I think the first reason was I had 2 really big shocks in terms of my vinyl collection. And one of them was just before I left Ibiza, there was a flood in the storage unit where I was storing my personal stuff. And I had my entire personal collection, not the stuff that I was playing out in clubs and bars. This was the stuff that I'd bought with my pocket money, that I'd built, like the collection that I built up. And there was a flood every year in Ibiza. I think it's like twice a year, once at the beginning of the year, once around sort of September, October, or it might be August, September-ish. The rains come and you have never seen rain like it. And the rain was that bad this year that the building that I was living in, like the basement was like 2 foot deep in water. And I just thought, oh my God, what's happening in the storage unit? And I got a call from them saying, you need to come and have a look at your unit because we've got a problem with the pipes rupturing under the roads. And this is the problem with Ibiza, which is a bit like Dubai. Their drainage is pants.
Yeah.
They haven't got a very good drainage system. So the pipes had all ruptured and the water came up through the floor. It wasn't a flood that was caused in the storage unit. It was a flood that was caused by the street. And I lost 2,500 units of vinyl because everything in my storage unit was just full of water, like sand, silt, and all the covers and all the middles had come off the records. And it was just like, I mean, I'm still like, my heart's just going because at that time I was still very invested in vinyl. And I would have had that discussion with you that vinyl's the best thing. It sounds better. Everybody should play vinyl. And that was my relationship with vinyl. And then I lost a lot of music. And when the insurance came, they paid out like 750 euros.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which wouldn't even pay to clean a quarter of what was damaged.
Yeah.
And I had whole collections like Junior Boyzone, every single record, Azuli Records, every single record from zero to wherever that has now not got any middles. I don't know what they are unless I look at the numbers on the middle, and it's all not got sleeves on it. And it was just like such a trauma. I know this sounds really childish, but it was a really big shock. And then that was the first one. And then when I came back to the UK, I wanted to get, I'd left a whole load of records with a friend in France to look after them till I had somewhere to store them. And I called him, or I put a message on his Facebook saying, can I get that vinyl back? And he went, which bits? I went, all of it. And he'd sold it on Discogs.
Oh, sugar. Okay. That's not good.
And he just, so second shock. And when those two things happened, I was just like, you know what? That's it for me. Vinyl.
Thank you, DJ Paulette. Thank you so much for coming over. This has been like the debut podcast for me. Welcome to Leeds. So thank you for being the debut guest. So
thank you for inviting me. It's
thank
been a
you.
joy.
Well, there you go. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, better get the train, hadn't I?